I'm Cody Puck, and I'm 20 years old, and this is my story. It all started back in 1993. Mom and Dad just kind of got together one day, and I was raised in a Christian family. Mom and Dad both love God; they still do. But as I was growing up, Dad was one of my biggest role models. And so I would always look up to him, and he showed this love towards people that I guess I just hadn't really seen in too many other people. I didn't really pay attention. But when I got to around 7 years old, I began asking questions about it, and one of the things that stuck out the most was his relationship with God. And so that's something that I wanted to begin to pursue, and so that's what I started doing. I had some conversations with Dad and some other men of the church, and Dad wanted to make sure that I knew what I was getting myself into. And so, he made sure that I knew. And so at 7, I would say that's when my walk with Christ began. So once that started going, I was very excited. I was ready to go just tell everyone that I saw who God was. And so when I got to around 13 or 14, sports was a huge part of my life. I would do school, and then I would go to soccer, and then Sunday and Wednesday I would go to church. But as I got into high school, and I was able to go to youth group, the youth group there at the church I went to went on a lot of mission trips, and they went to camp. And so I was able to go on those, and it would be something where I would go to camp, and I would learn all this cool stuff. I would come back, I'd be on fire for God for like 2 weeks. And then I'd be back into sports, and that's where my life would be. And then I would go on a mission trip, and I would come back after everything I learned. I'm on fire for God. I'm ready to just tell everyone that I see what God has done. And then about 2 weeks later, it would just kind of die off. And so one year we went on a mission trip to Puerto Rico, and as we were about to take off on the plane, me and one of my buddies were sitting there just kind of talking about what the week was going to be about, and he was telling me about a song that he was working on, or a couple lyrics that just popped into his head that he would like to make a song out of. And that was, "If my singing is not for you, tear out my voice, it's not about me. And if my singing is not for you, then remove my ability to speak freely." And so I didn't really think a whole lot of it at that second, but as the week progressed, that became what I was striving towards, that if everything that I was doing was not for God, then I had no room to be doing anything at all. And so coming back from that trip, I made a decision that it wasn't just going to be a 2-week thing. It was something where I began to understand that God has forgiveness in everything, and so even when I mess up, He's still going to love me. And I think that's where the 2 weeks would kind of die out, as I would realize how much sin I was living in, but I would forget about the forgiveness that God gives. And so I made a decision to say, I understand that God is going to forgive me no matter what, that He loves me. And so I was able to kind of go through that, which was interesting because the start of that next year, I was at a retreat at Look Up Lodge, and my dad gave me a call one night and said that one of my best friends had gone missing. And so didn't really think anything of it. They just said he'd gone duck hunting and didn't come back home, and so I just figured he'll be fine. 17 days later, they found him at the bottom of the lake. And that was really tough because I just lost my best friend. But coming off of living as if everything is for God, there was a little bit of comfort in that. Pause. Go back a minute. Before that had actually happened, there was another song that was put in progress off of James 1, which says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith will develop you every mile." Resume. We're going back. So after I received this news, God placed on my heart what I'd just been reading in James. And So he was able to use that for me to comfort my friends around me, and he gave me two options. He said, you can either be mad at me about what happened, or you can choose to trust me and believe that what I've said is true and believe that I will take care of you. And that is what I wanted to choose. And it was like this joy that just came over me, that I was able to rejoice in who God was and what he had done for me. And so because of that, going into my freshman year of college, I was able to just remember who God was and what it is that he had done for me, which kind of led into my summer. I spent it as a summer staffer at Look Up Lodge. The past 2 summers have been spent as a staffer. And it's really cool to see how God has used those specific instances just to grow me in my faith. There's so many things that I've learned, and there's so many things that I would love to go more in depth with. But just to kind of wrap things up and where I am today, just recently, God has been teaching me a little bit about myself and some of the things that I'm bad at. And so God has really been teaching me how to love people. And so because of that, because of what he's been teaching me, I feel like God has pressed on me to try out for the band and see where it is God takes me from there. And so that's where I am today. That's what I've got for you. Thank you.